Hallo, ich möchte Deutsch üben. Kannst du mir helfen?
Aber natürlich, ich helfe dir super gerne. Lass uns einfach ein bisschen auf Deutsch quatschen. Wenn du irgendwelche Fragen hast oder dir bestimmte Wörter schwerfallen, dann sag einfach Bescheid.
Ich möchte einfach ein bisschen auf Deutsch sprechen.
Das ist doch perfekt. Dann erzähl doch mal, was dich so interessiert oder was du in deiner Freizeit gerne machst. Da können wir bestimmt ein bisschen drüber reden.
In meiner Freizeit gehe ich gerne zum Sport, ich laufe gerne und ich treffe mich mit meinen Freunden. Ich war erst letztens mit meinen Freunden im Kino. Das hat sehr viel Spaß gemacht. Was machst du denn gerne in deiner Freizeit?
Ich verbringe super gerne Zeit mit Lesen, ich schaue auch gerne Serien oder Filme und ich gehe total gerne spazieren.
Oh, das klingt ja auch sehr spannend.
Ja.
And that's the end of it. Okay. Pretty smooth, right? But here's the thing, I'm a native speaker, so going back and forth like this works really well, and to be honest, ChatGPT's German is pretty good, not only in terms of grammar and vocab, but also pronunciation and the way it expresses itself. However, the real question is still, can you use ChatGPT to practice speaking German effectively, especially if you're just starting out? So in today's video, we'll answer all of that, and we're going to talk about how you can use ChatGPT to support your German learning. I'll show you what ChatGPT is actually good for and where it falls short, smart prompts you can use to practice conversations, vocabulary, and even emails, but in a smart way, and how to make sure you're not just translating, but actually learning. If you're new here, hallo und herzlich willkommen. My name is Salome. I'm a native German teacher and passionate language learner myself. I speak 5 languages and I'm currently working on my 6th, so I know a thing or two about language learning, about what works and what is a total waste of time. I'm also the founder of the German Fluency Academy, where I help complete beginners go from zero knowledge to confident and conversational German, focusing on practical language skills for real life. If you're looking for a clear roadmap and supportive guidance, I highly recommend starting with my free beginner workshop. The link is in the description box below. All right, let's talk about AI. So as you saw in the intro of this video, you can use ChatGPT for conversation practice, asking questions like, how are you, or what do you do in your free time, and practice responding to them. It's definitely more engaging than speaking out loud to yourself at home. However, it doesn't replace human interaction, and I can tell you exactly why. I tried this technique for learning Thai. I'm currently somewhere between beginner levels A1 and A2, so I completely understand that challenges faced by those just starting out in German. What I found really annoying was that whenever I took a slightly longer pause to think of a word, ChatGPT would interrupt by moving on to the next question or comment. It almost did that also earlier when I was just speaking in German. Another thing I found super irritating was that it kept giving so many positive affirmations that it felt extremely fake. So in my case, I also asked it to correct me when I'm wrong or to just give me feedback. Eventually, I had to explicitly ask it to stop giving so many compliments and just to keep things efficient. Maybe it's because I'm German, but too many compliments just come across as insincere, and to be honest, I prefer to cut out the fluff. So those are 2 things to be aware of. I guess if you're already a more advanced language learner who just wants to practice a quick back and forth conversation, or you already know exactly what topics you want to cover, ChatGPT can be pretty fun. But again, I choose a real human, a language partner over AI every single time. A real person won't interrupt you. They will actually give you space to gather your thoughts and allow you time to find the right words and put them together into a proper sentence. And at the end of the day, we're learning languages to communicate with real people. And that's something no AI can fully replicate. Real conversations are spontaneous and unpredictable. They come with misunderstandings, laughter, awkward pauses, emotions, and cultural nuances. These human elements make your language skills truly come alive and help you build genuine connections. So AI can serve as a safe stepping stone, like training wheels, to prepare you for those interactions. But the growth that comes from speaking face to face, embracing discomfort, and genuinely connecting with another person will always take your conversational skills to a deeper and more meaningful level. However, aside from conversation practice, there are some pretty cool ways you can use ChatGPT, so I'm definitely not against using AI. I actually think it can be a fun addition to your overall German learning adventure. But I'd suggest treating it more like a side quest rather than your main method of learning. That way you can use it to explore vocabulary, practice specific skills, and add variety to your studies without relying on it as your primary resource. So let's dive into all of the good stuff that you can do with ChatGPT, and I'm only going to cover a few because there is honestly so much that you can do. And I actually got this first idea from my student, Carl, so shout out to Carl. He used ChatGPT to write a short story in German about his granddaughter, incorporating vocabulary he was learning at the time and specifying his current proficiency level. So here's exactly what you could ask ChatGPT. Write a short story in German at an A2 level of proficiency about the following topic. Please include the following words. And then you put in your vocabulary list. You can also use ChatGPT for writing emails. You might even already be doing this, but what many learners miss out on is using it to capture the right tone or nuance. One of my students recently submitted this question to me for our weekly live Q&A session. He asked, I'd like to know some tips for using translators. When I use them to translate short texts, my colleagues usually end up laughing at me because the translations aren't very accurate, especially when it comes to using Sie instead of du and so on. In his case, he actually has a very friendly relationship with his coworkers. They even let him redecorate the pantry during one of our community posted note challenges, which was so much fun. But anyways, I digress. He suddenly, because of the translation tool, was sending them these overly formal emails that just didn't match their usual relaxed interactions and relationship that they have. So with ChatGPT, you can actually ask specifically for the tone you need. For example, translate this email into German, write it in a casual and friendly tone. So that's the first step. The second thing you can do to really maximize your learning is to ask ChatGPT to create a vocabulary list for you with keywords translated from German into English from that email. And if it's a shorter email or message, you can even go a bit further and ask it to break down all of the phrases and explain specifically. This way, you gradually build a personalized vocabulary bank, revise important phrases regularly, and eventually gain the skills and confidence to write your emails entirely by yourself. So here is a prompt you could use for that. Please list the key vocabulary and useful phrases from the email above with translations and brief explanations. So, in my opinion, the voice tool doesn't work very well for beginners, mainly because of the interruptions and the issues I've mentioned earlier. However, you can still effectively practice simple conversations in written form. For example, you can ask ChatGPT to role-play a German conversation at a bakery or cafe with you, allowing you to practice basic interactions in a stress-free environment. Here's a simple prompt you could use. Let's practice a basic German conversation at a bakery. You'll be the baker and I'll be the customer. And after you've practiced, you can also request feedback on your responses. Give me feedback on my German sentences above. I'd say most of the time ChatGPT is pretty accurate, but it's always good to double check your German with a native speaker. For instance, students inside the German Fluency Academy have weekly live support sessions where we review their work, answer questions, and provide detailed feedback. That way, you're always confident that you're on the right track, no second guessing, and you know exactly what you need to work on moving forward. If that sounds like something you'd find helpful as well, the best way to get started is by joining my free taster lesson for beginners. In the German Fluency Academy, you'll get real support from real native German speakers, aka me and my team, who don't just help you learn the language, but also understand the culture and life in Germany. Since we're all native speakers and we grew up here in Germany, I know that we have so much more to offer than just explaining grammar and vocabulary. We also give honest, very straightforward feedback, not just because we're German, but because we genuinely want to help, and it really does help you stop second guessing yourself and start speaking with confidence. Clear feedback is so key to building real confidence and knowing you're on the right track. So the link to join my free taster lesson for beginners is in the description box below, and I would love to see you there. Now for my next tip, you can also ask ChatGPT to create example sentences using the words you've learned. That's actually one of the best ways to remember new vocabulary, by seeing them in context. So here's a prompt you can use for that. Please write 5 beginner-friendly German sentences using the word and include English translations. There are honestly so many more fun and creative ways you can use ChatGPT to support your German learning, but like I mentioned earlier, think of it as a side quest. We are learning a language to connect with real people at the end, so if it were only about getting an email written, we would not be putting in the time to actually build this skill. It's the conversations, the relationships, and the confidence you gain that makes it all worthwhile. So I'm curious to know, how do you use ChatGPT for learning German? Drop your ideas or favorite prompts in the comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts and how you use AI in your language learning. I hope this gave you some fresh ideas and inspiration for how you can use ChatGPT to support your German learning, whether it's building vocabulary, practicing conversations, or writing more naturally. Just remember, AI is a great tool, but it's not a substitute for a real human connection and feedback. If you're looking for a clear roadmap, practical guidance, and support from native speakers, don't forget to check out my free Taste the Lesson. It's the best place to start your journey to confident and conversational German. You'll find the link in the description box below. I'll be back next week with another lesson for you guys. Das ist alles für heute. Vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen und bis zum nächsten Mal. Tschüss!